Good evening, everyone. So it's 6 o'clock. Today's May 7th. This is the Education Committee meeting, and welcome to everyone on a nice day. We have two presentations tonight, and then a number of issues that we want to discuss with regard to potential motions for next week. So with that, does anyone have any announcements? I don't even know. Dr. Wheeler couldn't be here tonight, but
Any announcements?
Nothing. Okay. So why don't we do have minutes, and we should give any corrections to Ms. Evans. And with that, I think we're ready to start with the first presentation on personalized learning. Yeah.
It's like a happy medium between our two heads.
Probably a little lower.
Well, this one we can tilt right on the
There we go.
bottom.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to make this presentation. Dr. Wheeler is not here this evening, but thank you to the school board and to the community. We want to talk to you a little bit about our launching of personalized learning at Sandy Run Middle School. We began our journey last year when we recognized that there was an opportunity for a team from the middle school and a team from the high school to participate in a 2-year learning cycle with the Montgomery County IU around personalized and project-based learning. We brought a presentation to the Sandy Run faculty, and out of that emerged a volunteer group of teachers, some of whom are here tonight, some of whom are here tonight who are part of the original group, and others who joined along the way. As our understanding of personalized project-based learning has evolved, so have the people who have come on board with our team. And it's something we're very hopeful to carry forth and to continue inviting other members of the Sandy Run Middle School staff.
And when Ava and I approached Dr. Wheeler last year with this opportunity to partner with the Institute for Personalized Learning and a cohort of schools across the county, it was a time when we were also saying, no more new. We need to pause on new initiatives. And we said, no, this is really accelerating the good work we're doing, and it's giving a lot of vocabulary and structure to the things that we're trying. And personalized learning is by no means new. I am the product of a personalized learning school, my middle school and high school. And at its premise, it is a shift from compliance-based instruction, right, thinking worksheets and lecture and that serial experience, really to an empowerment-based instructional model where the student is the co-designer with the teacher of their learning. And so, go ahead, talk a little bit more.
Yeah, what I can say is that there really is no formulaic approach to what this looks like. And one of the things that our team of teachers, many of whom are here, and there are others at Sandy Run, and administrators have had to do, is get used to the uncertainty and know that as we continue to learn more and understand more and practice, we'll come to a different understanding. And it has been an exciting evolution of ideas, and we're excited to bring it forward, and we're using a continuous learning model that as we learn more, we're able to implement more. We're excited about that, but it is also can sometimes be daunting when you don't know exactly precisely what the future looks like because you're open to new learning. And so that's the model we're using iteratively.
So, and also at the heart, right, of even though personalized learning is not formulaic, there is no like, oh, this school does it and we're going to do it the same way, right? Because that often doesn't work for you. At the core of personalized learning in the classroom as a practice is learner metacognition, right? So this capacity, building the capacity to be aware of your thinking process. So it's one thing to be able to write a great essay. It's a whole other skill set to say, I need to communicate my understanding, What is my process around constructing an essay? My process around constructing a video? My process around collaborating with others? My process around practicing my communication? So that becomes the heart of it. And that's the heart of it for everyone, including the teachers. And so that's what we're really excited for tonight. We have a number of teachers who are leading this work. A number of those teachers, a subset of those teachers, have come here tonight. So they're going to describe the work that they're launching, a bit of their journey, but then I look forward to more and more of this work and presentation over this next year as this develops in practice at Sandy Run and beyond.
Hi everybody, Chris Meller, Sandy Run 8th grade social studies. There's nothing more satisfying, thrilling as a teacher than to know that you have your students like in the palm of your hand, that they are fully embracing the material that you're putting out there. I've also, as I've been thinking about talking and addressing you guys over the last week, it's occurred to me that every time I see my 2.5-year-old niece, Anna, that human beings obviously are innately curious, and somewhere along the line we lose that, and perhaps that's how we're wired, is to be hyper curious as kids. But there's certainly an energy that we would like to do a better job tapping as teachers. And so last year when we watched a video about the IPL, the Institute of Personalized Learning in Wisconsin, we kind of said to ourselves, they got something that we want. And we would like to share that video with you right now.
Middle school, I think my biggest memory is 4 walls, 30 desks.
A different teacher for everything and chaos in between.
Constant movement, constant shifting, one classroom to another.
So everybody did the same projects, you all had the same outcome of your project, kind of standard.
Pretty much sat there all day listening to lectures. I didn't like middle school, truthfully, when I was her age at all.
It was nothing like this.
We're not preparing today's learners for your future, we're preparing them for theirs. If we educate learners as though the future is predictable, we're shortchanging them. So we need to prepare them for a future that will feature rapid change and will be unpredictable.
If it keeps going, don't take it out. Wait till it stops.
Why do we ask kids to just sit in a room and listen to one person for hours on end and expect that they're going to be able to take something away from it? If we can engage them in the experience and have them be an active participant in it, that's really when we're going to start to see change happen.
Since becoming a mom, I've realized that all kids have special needs, and I want those needs to be addressed on a daily basis. I want them to be able to learn what it is that they're passionate about and what they love. We can't talk about history without talking about science. We can't talk about history without talking about math. All of these things are interrelated.
Krista Crowder and I had been teaching on the 7th grade team, so I approached her and I said, I think I want to do something different. We really spent a full year in development of trying everything from how we teach to setting up physical space to furniture within a space. It was really that collaboration that built this idea of what are we going to do. The Flight Academy stands for Facilitating Learning Through Integration, Guidance, High Expectations, and Technology. We are a specialized program within a traditional middle school.
I want each kid to be setting their own goals, knowing what they want to work on in all of their different subject areas, and really having different paths for each one of our students.
Learning is like a different thing for every single person. At Flight, they have high expectations for us. They give us high school work sometimes, and it's kind of crazy, but they challenge us in a way that we're trusted with a lot of responsibility.
I have advanced humanities since I wanted to grow more, as I'm a writer and a reader as well.
The one-on-one advisor is like a conference. We have it every week where we get to talk about like what I've been working on and see how far I am in a certain thing. Probably right here on the
Yes, good idea. All right, thanks, Logan.
The role of educators in that environment is subtle, it's nuanced, but it is constantly supporting the learner as opposed to demonstrating the expertise of the educator. That it is all about learning, not just about instruction.
Getting to a structure and policy change might take some time. Getting it right in the forefront with students today is a huge benefit to our system during this time of transition. And for the most part, everything we're doing happens at the local level. It's where the best decisions are made, it's where we have the greatest source of impact. And it's really where ultimately the user is, or our student.
That's it?
I believe our department does exhibit empathetic leadership, where you understand the interaction that has to happen at the local state level. As parents see the value of personalized learning, they push that at the local level. And as different districts see things going on, they want to emulate the ones that are successful. They tend to take pride in regional achievement and success.
I kind of learned that I liked the freedom of learning.
I know that he's happy, and I know that he's really learning because he comes back with the solution himself.
I really like just exploring everything, and that's exactly what Flight offers. It's allowed me to be a lot more independent at school and at home.
What I've learned about my daughter is that she is infinitely more capable than I ever thought she was.
In elementary school, I didn't get all my work done and stuff, but now it's definitely a first thing basis to get my work done, turn all my stuff in, and be a positive influence to the others.
My name is Johanna Parkin, and I'm an 8th grade English teacher at Sandy Run. And just to follow up on that a little bit, there's so many great things about personalized learning, but if you caught that one piece in there where where the student said that he is responsible for his own learning. He is now interested in doing what he knows he can do best. I think the English department has been dabbling in this really for the last couple months, and what we did, I just want to briefly tell you this example. So we just read Arsenic and Old Lace, and instead of what we typically would do, we would all read it at one time. Some kids would not be reading it, some kids would not understand it. We certainly all were not on the same page. However, this time we said, you guys are going to take charge of your own learning path. You have a choice. Here are your choices. And suddenly, at the end of Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3, everybody seems to understand what's going on. One example of, at the end of every act, every student has to demonstrate to us, yes, in fact, they have learned something. They can figure out however they want to do it. And one student of mine, it comes to the high school to do math. Certainly far more than I know. And he decided he was going to tell me that he knew all about the characters through math. Now really, I have no idea what he's talking about. However, I showed the math teacher, and she in fact said, this is exactly, this is right. So if I had not allowed that choice, if I had not allowed him to create his own learning path, he would not have been involved, he would not have understood what he now has in fact understood.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Miller, and I teaching at Sandy Run. I think I taught some of your kids. I recognize some names up here, right? Mr. Sirota, Mr. Sharp here. I came in a little bit late on this at the beginning, November, December of this year, and when they started talking about personalized learning, I'm like, that's cool. I like it. If you know, GIEPs type stuff, enrichment, you can picture what that might look like. But then they threw on top of it project-based learning or project-based environment, and I jumped because that's me. You know, I was the 7-year-old swinging a hammer trying to figure out if I drive a nail so far into a piece of wood, when I tap it, it makes different notes. It's what I do, and I bring that into the classroom when I teach. We're building, we're making, we're experiencing these real-life problems. So when you look at personalized learning, and then you throw in the project-based learning, you're taking and setting a scenario for kids to work under. The idea of introducing kids to a project that engages them in something that's like a real-world problem. They're able to demonstrate their proficiency through the different academic levels by hitting benchmarks, but those benchmarks are developed around this presentation of their solution to the real-world problem. So now instead of, you know, teaching in that 45 or 60-minute silo, you're introducing them to start to think about how would this affect us in the real world, solving those problems. They would be developing a presentation or a product. That product is geared towards, I don't want to call it a real audience, but knowledgeable professionals in that field. So instead of just presenting to me, they're presenting to musicians, or if they're building instruments, or presenting to, local writers who actually do this for a living. And then finally, the bottom line is getting students to engage and to think, to use creative skills, their creativity, to use their thinking skills, communication skills, to do more than just learn that fact. It's like, I can memorize this fact, but if I understand how that fact is tied into this real world scenario, now it's a much more deeper understanding and deeper learning environment. The slide right here is for the people who did not, for people who haven't attended tonight, just a chance to read up on what we've talked about.
My name is Amy Sullivan Beck. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Sandy Run. Now that you've heard a little bit more about what personalized learning and project-based learning is all about, meshing the two could be a great idea, but you can also use them one-on-one. If you use either of them, it will create some of these shifts. So first shift is the goal setting. The student itself will create their own goals in collaboration with the teacher. While that student is creating its own goals, we're also giving them more of a voice. When we create more of a voice for our students, then they have more of a commitment level. They can self-reflect through different outlets, through journals, through conversation, through blogs and vlogs. And through those self-reflection and voice, the students can change their path depending on the new goals that they will set for themselves. That commitment will then increase engagement. With the increased engagement, they also will be able to have more choices on how they want to get their learning and then show their learning. And that showing the learning could be through the project-based. It could be through creating videos. It could be through creating their own blogs. So we just kind of give them more freedom in how they receive the knowledge and then how they will show that they master. Thank you.
This down. Good evening, everybody. I'm Stephanie Mutard. I teach 8th grade math at Sandy Run. And one of the things that we thought was really important when embarking on, a new practice or evolving into something new was visiting some local places. And, the video that you saw was awesome, and I think we'd love to go there. But there's also some places that are much closer to home that we're doing some great things that we wanted to see, and not only to see what we could do, but also to maybe see what are some things they're doing that we don't want to do or don't fit with us as well. So I'm not going to read those to you, but those were just some different schools, and we really found some really informative things by talking with other teachers, students, finding their likes, dislikes, what worked, what didn't, how it evolved for them. And we used a rubric that, if you are interested, you can look, I think, at the slideshow, right, and click on that, and you can really see how we assessed the different schools we went to and really came to some decisions as to what will work for us here at Sandy Run as we move forward.
When we first started this process, Ava was really nice enough to get everybody these books. And they all offered something different. And the one I just want to talk about very, very briefly is the one called The Innovator's Mindset by George Couros. And George Couros is an educator who's in the area of innovation leadership, and he's specifically geared towards student learning and engagement. And I want to just talk about, very briefly, 3 quotes that he says. Change is an opportunity to do something amazing. If students leave school less curious than when they started, we have failed them. And lastly, innovation is not reserved for the few. It is something we will all need to embrace if we are to move forward. And I think one big part of this personalized learning is the ability for students to take risks. But when it really comes down to it, it's not just the students that are taking risks. It's the educators that are taking a risk. Risking to do something different, daring to try something that you don't know what's going to happen. And when you do this along with the student, then you both win. And I think that if we allow ourselves, if the educators allow ourselves that little bit of chance to say, you know what, I'm going to go and I'm going to try something different, the outcome is amazing. And not only is it amazing for the child, but it's for the student, for the educator as well. And you really learn so much about yourself and so much about the student.
Hi everyone, Hanna Kim. I teach 6th grade ELA. And I was kind of a late bloomer on this because I was new to Sandy Run, and so I was kind of just getting my bearings. But I will tell you the professional development timeline, you can just kind of see up there, it's just a timeline of things. But I think Johanna said something that was really important to the professional development part of this, which is it's messy, it's confusing, it gets dirty. So as the educator, there's going to be tons of opportunities for us to kind of dig a little deeper as the educator. We've kind of started doing that. We are still a long way of figuring it out. But I think the other important thing to understand is there has to be this shift in thinking. And we would like to spark a flame for other teachers who aren't there yet. And I think that's really important to create that environment. If you look on the board there, you'll see we did a webinar with the Flight Academy, one of our in-service days, which was very informative. We are planning on going to Dallastown in York, Pennsylvania on May 25th, a team of 6th grade teachers who are interested and curious. And we are planning to do 2 weeks of summer planning to figure out, just to start thinking about how we integrate and personalize learning for our students next year.
So there are a couple of takeaway points I want to leave you with this evening. The first one is the kind of conversations that have been happening that I think that you can see that are evolving as teachers are learning more and trying things out are really, really important. And we've given teachers the opportunity and the space and the time to do that, supported by experts in the field. Both in surrounding districts as well as with our partners in Wisconsin through the IPL. There are other schools across the country who do work like this and are doing it very successfully. From my perspective as a curriculum director, the schools that are doing this successfully see increased achievement and increased achievement scores from this kind of work. What particularly appeals to me around a combination of personalized and project-based learning is that the personalized learning still sets those very important goals and benchmarks that we're held to by our state through our PA core standards. So it's not an entire release of those standards just to do project-based learning. Rather, it's an integration and assimilation of those standards into meaningful work for students and for teachers. We've talked long and hard and have evolved over time around what this should look like. You might have noticed with the Flight Academy, it was an exclusive school within a school. There were some students in that public school were part of that, and that's actually a way to begin the work. And that very school, I believe 2/3 of the school is now doing that work. So it started with 2 teachers, had a very small set of students. We visited some area schools, and we saw small teams of 40 kids segregated away from the other children. And after every visit, we debriefed. And in some of those debriefs, I think it became very clear that we are a public school, and this kind of learning should be for everyone, and it shouldn't just be for a small group of students. And so that's where we're landing now. We have teachers who are lead learners. Some of them are sitting here tonight. Some of them couldn't come but are actively part of this work. We have lead learners in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So you'll see that work across Sandy Run in pockets, sometimes more powerfully because groups of teachers are working together next year to put more and more of this in place. I think I want to give the assurance that we'll continue to benchmark to make sure that the achievement we're looking for is happening so that we can use that data as we move forward. And just like many things we're doing now, we'll use a continuous review model. I think it's hard to do something new. I think it's brave to do something new, and I'm really, really excited that we're on the pathway toward that. Good old friend of ours, Benjamin Franklin, was wise. So when we say project-based personalized learning has been around a long time. I believe you can see that it has. We could probably go all the way back to Plato and beyond. So with that, I'll just say questions and comments.
Thank you. It all sounds very exciting. So, and I really love the lead learners and the people who have done this voluntarily, who've gotten involved in this and want to push it. So I think that's fantastic. So if you could explain a little bit, I know for a while you were talking about ITeam. And I mean, you sort of explained what the difference is, but if you could kind of just tell us again, what the ITeams were, how you decided to change the terminology to launch, and how it's going to move forward.
So I'll start, and then Philip may want to add something. So initially we thought about having, and the ITeam actually grew out of our scheduling, Sandy Run Middle School Scheduling Committee last year, when we put together our guidelines for what we thought best practice in middle level education is. And part of that was having some kind of innovative team of teachers, students. And so that kind of began the idea. And then when we heard about the MCIU project, we thought, okay, this is a way maybe to move forward with that. And we use that terminology, ITeam, and when I say that it takes a village to get to where we are today in our process, it really does. So for a long time we thought, well, we have an opt-in protocol where, there would be some kind of application process. That's what other school districts do when they have these small exclusive teams. Then we thought, well, no, that's way too exclusive. Well, let's do opt-out. Parents who maybe don't want to be part of this. But then our teachers started doing the work, our 8th grade English teachers, our 8th grade math teachers, our 7th grade math teacher, some of our science teachers are already doing this right now, and it's being rather successful, and it certainly isn't upsetting anybody. In fact, kids are more engaged and learning. And so then we thought, why make this exclusive at all? One of the things that also from the beginning we tried to underscore is that this is not an exclusive thing for some teachers. And I think one of the teachers said, well, I didn't join until a little later. A couple of them. It's perfectly fine. You can join anytime. Anytime you feel like I want to know more about this, please come. We'll help. We'll provide professional development. You can come watch us teach in a certain way. We'll share our ideas. So we don't want it to be exclusive. My vision, and I think the vision of a lot of people in this room, is that our whole middle school would use these kind of best practices moving forward, and I think that we're already seeing that in pockets.
I'll elaborate on it a little more as well. Okay, so if you think about a team of teachers, and we have a great teaming model at the middle school, and you have 3 teachers or 4 in October who say, there are a lot of opportunities for this next unit coming up in November to complement each other, things we're doing in math and science and social. Let's go ahead and collapse the schedule. Let's do something where we give kids a lot of choice in their pathway and choice in outcomes. We wouldn't send home a letter to families saying, we have teachers who are working twice as hard to engineer this dynamic learning experience for your children. Would you like to opt in or out of the unit? Right? No, so we'd never do that. And we saw that, you could feel it was palpable on school visits where it was a school within a school. But where we visited schools where this was the culture and this is what everyone did, there was something very powerful. The teachers in those schools were on a journey together, constantly sharing, constantly collaborating. The meetings throughout the year here, they ebbed and flowed monthly, weekly, 30 people in the room, 5 people in the room, 30 people, and it was always inviting. The teachers began to get very, very excited about opportunities. They started to brainstorm. Our job as administrators was about removing obstacles and providing resources. And it's just so exciting, right? It's a fantastic place to be. So that's part of the evolution from, originally we had this ITeam because it was a scheduling structure, could create a team within a school within a school. That video was inspiring, so that was a framework. But through this year of discovery and learning, we said, there are schools who do this as part of their whole culture. That's a slower burn, but we felt it resonated with us as the adult learners.
Yeah, thank you for sort of elaborating on that. Questions or comments from the committee?
It'll just be a brief comment. First, it is exciting. I think it's great in terms of seeing how learning can be personalized. It's the question I have is in regards to the facility and facilitating project-based learning. Currently, right now, our structure, our facility seems to have its own hindrances. And so I guess the question is, at the current facility right now, in what way is it hindered? And with the possibility of the new construction, in what way could that be enhanced in terms of personalized and project-based learning?
Before you answer that, can I tack on to that? The question that I had already noted down related to that was our design for the new building and our entire structure around our current building is built around the teaming model in middle school. And I think we believe in teaming, continuing going forward. My question is, is there any relationship with the teaming model in this? Does this change anything? That's really the question, I think, as it drives the facility. Is there anything about this initiative that changes our opinion of the teaming model? It makes us believe in it more or less, or it needs to be a little different, or anything like that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, like two pieces to answer it, because there's two separate questions. I think we want a teacher to come up to answer your question, because that's the lived experience. So we'll invite a teacher, and then we can embellish if we want. I think to speak to teaming, if anything, teaming accelerates this kind of work, because you're honoring the amount of time it takes to coordinate and collaborate around a kid and their personalized learning paths and their success or failures. So if anything, teaming accelerates this kind of work.
Also, I heard a question around the facilities, current and future. And so I'm already seeing teachers use our current facilities to the best of their ability. But if anybody would like to come up and talk about teaming and or the use of facilities, that'd be great. And it could be more than one person.
I'm just going to talk about the present. So there are 4 of us in here, myself, Rob, Stephanie, and Chris, who are going to lead up this 8th grade team next year. And we are working with what we have. The key to this working very, very well is the idea that we are all together. So there are only so many places. We have one room that collapses into 2. Presently, that's already taken. So we have to figure out how we can best use what we have. Office space is minimal. We've figured out we would move, and Jill's been really working with us on this to figure. We also need a space, an open space. We have the auditorium. We have the lobby, but there's also people all around us. So with the noise and making things and projects, all these things need to be considered. And I know when Rob and Stephanie and Chris and I, we really sat down for quite a few hours thinking about what would be best for our kids to do the best that we can. So right now, we're slated to move on the English wing. I don't know, things change all the time. There's also a room that's attached to a room that can be open, but right now it doesn't open anymore, so we have to figure that out. So we are in the process of figuring it out. Do you want to come up and?
The idea with the ITeam is getting out of the classroom, like that 940 square foot room, and getting kids to work collaboratively. Like Johanna said, the 4 rooms in the English department, there's a separating wall that'll blow that into 1,800 square feet. Finding large group learning spaces to do something more than just 25 or 30 kids we have to be creative. So that could be 4 corners of the auditorium where kids are pulled out and working and then back together into a large group. They could be the cafeteria, core 1, core 2, and part of core 3 until they're prepping for lunch, where we have permission to move the tables apart and do some of the physics stuff where the rolling scooters and the banging doesn't disturb the 7th grade classes underneath us. Main lobby is another space, a large group learning space, but when you talk facilities with Sandy Run being 50, 60, 72, I think it was built, it was built as a legacy school where everyone had their own room and that's what you did. So we're working through that, looking for this creative space, even if it means each classroom becomes a specific genre of room, like the science wing is the crazy mad laboratory, and when the kids come in there, they're working through that setting, taking them into that laboratory setting instead of just walking into another 940 square foot room with tables. So that's where we're at with the idea of integrating the ITeam into our current building.
I just want you to know, when we went to Cheltenham, they had like movable walls. They asked for the next step, a glass wall where you could put a divider in between the panes of glass. So there was all kinds of really amazing things that I think our architects can help us with in the future. So that we're not flexible grouping literally in English this year. We took them in the hallway and said, okay, you want a double read over there, right? So we're excited about that prospect, but I know this team is going to make it work for now. So.
I just want to say something about the annex, because one of the reluctance for many of the sixth grade teachers is just the way that the annex is situated. It's really virtually impossible for kids to be running up steps, down steps to do this kind of collaborative work, especially if teachers are integrating a project. So my team is talking about that, and we're trying to think if we need to move someone in order for the kids to be able to move a little bit more flexibly. So I think with the new building, it will be this idea will be a lot easier for teachers to kind of grasp. The other thing is, I was lucky enough to go to the Newtown Middle School, and I think one of the spaces that was probably really good for this is the collaborative areas. Art, do you remember when they had those like wings with tables? So I know that in that Newtown Middle School there were two collaborative areas, so maybe more of those where if you are doing something, teachers could go ahead and put those kids in those collaborative areas to kind of work together. That's what I would say would be more necessary.
I just want to say one more thing, that next year, we are going to do the best we can with what we have. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. That's the thing, and we all know that. So we don't know who's going to go where, who's going to do what the kids are going to do. This is in process. But I will say that I think the key to this is space, open space. If we're going to collaborate and we're going to cross over curriculum, then we need to have that space to do that.
Do we need to redesign the new building?
It certainly creates some questions. One of the core questions that we would need to answer quickly would be, and I heard large group spaces and collaborative spaces and those kinds of things, and for how many kids at a time? That's a question, and I know we don't know it yet, as Dr. Parkin said. We don't really know, but we have to kind of make this decision soon.
Currently I teach about 98 kids, one team, it's like 88, 98, 98 if you look at teams. So if you're looking at one of the three teams, you're looking at a large group space that can handle, pie in the sky, 90, 100 kids in one setting, like the auditorium.
So one team.
One team, right.
Okay.
Correct.
And just, the term ITeam has been used really just as a working concept title for a long time. And it's important to affirm here at this meeting that we've shifted from that, right? So we have, and we're calling them launch teachers, the teachers who are leading this work. We have launch teachers across grades and across teams. So, Maria Burke is going to be on a team as a launch teacher. You'll be leading that work, collaborating with her colleagues. But we have done some shifts where we've taken aggregated groups of these teachers who want to lead this work and to put them on the same team. Again, not to create a school within a school, just to facilitate developing those models of practice. And so when we think about facilities design, right, we would want those opportunities for a team to get together. And obviously that would have to be coordinated. If eventually a model of practice really is successful, then it's going to be adopted by all the teams. So that we would need frequent opportunities for teams to get together. And obviously you don't want to have, dozens of places within the school where 98 kids could get together in clusters concurrently, right? So that's too pie in the sky. But at the same time, you're thinking about how often would we want to get 98 kids together? Where could we do that? And for how long would them or their work stay in that place?
I think I could add to this. I've witnessed the 8th grade teachers with 60 kids working on arsenic and old lace. And they're doing that in and outside of their classrooms in the main lobby of Sandy Run. And what that looks like is productive workspaces. So when you think about a modern day office and you think about people very focused and engaged in different groupings, so with perhaps 2 students working together, 4 students working together, 6 students working together, a teacher offering a mini lesson in one of the classrooms. And what, amidst all of this coordination, what keeps everyone on the same path is that they're all working towards achievement along the PA core standard. So it's very clear, like when you're making thinking visible, it's not that you're abandoning any of that academic achievement work. Rather, you're helping kids understand that that's where they're going. You are pre-testing them to assess them, to see what they already know so that you're not having them relearn things they already don't need to learn. And within the constraints of that, you're allowing teachers and students to have incredible creativity to move towards those goals and then also to show evidence of having achieved those goals. So I think that as everyone's talking about I think work, there's always equilibrium and disequilibrium when we learn something, and that period of disequilibrium is when we haven't quite got it and then we get it at the end. And so I think what you're hearing the teachers report is our own adult cycle of learning is about understanding something, equilibrium, thinking about something new, disequilibrium, and then moving to the next step. And a much easier way of saying that is it's messy. But I wouldn't want anybody here to get the impression that it is not moving students along a very exact path of learning. And I think that needs to be said because I wouldn't want anyone to get the impression that students are just learning whatever it is that they want to learn. It is a conference between the student and the teacher when the teacher knows what the goals are, but helping the students to metacognitively set those goals.
As I think of the correlation to facility, I also think of the correlation to technology in regards to this initiative. My question, either for you, Phil, or for Kim, is there a possibility also of pushing this down to the 5th grade where a one-to-one initiative begins, where those students can also begin to delve into personalized and project-based learning?
Well, so now you've hit on the master plan. No, so the idea is this has begun. This was a very organic process where it resonated immediately with a cohort of teachers, and that took off and has really grown in the middle school. And middle school is this fantastic place where students are going from this very concrete, sequential approach to the world, although full of curiosity, to greater levels of abstraction and the capacity to reflect on their own learning. So hopefully, as this grows and this practice grows, this becomes a catalyst for shared professional development both ways, both to the high school and down to the lower grades. I think if you want to see a master of personalized learning and differentiation and engaging students as learners and constructing their knowledge, you just need to visit a 3rd grade classroom. Right, that there is where the incredible art of teaching happens, and I'm always amazed by that, and throughout my career as an educator, I've always dipped into that well to remember, and then I bring it back to the high school. So that I think this excitement when it comes from teachers becomes this catalyst for this cross-pollination. And definitely making space for our faculty to be able to share their learning outcomes and approaches. Ava, you want to add to that?
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
We haven't had any formal conversations regarding this at the elementary level, but I think one of the things that's most exciting about being an elementary teacher is you're fully integrated. You are the teacher that teaches all of the subjects. And so your ability to say, we did this in English and now we're moving into social studies, and make those connections within your own classroom is one of the really powerful aspects of elementary school. And of course, there are school districts that keep that model all the way through 8th grade because you have that internal integration. So there is some of that, I think, already happening at the elementary level just by the nature of the construct.
Yeah, I'm very excited about what you're talking about and certainly the enthusiasm that I'm hearing in this room. I'm curious how you're going to measure success. I mean, I think it's, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but there is always that thing. I mean, student engagement is great, but what is it beyond there? How are you really going to evaluate this?
So there are a number of ways we're going to evaluate this, and it'll be an ongoing process. We have already met with our 6th to 12th grade math coordinator, Meg Kowalski, and our math teachers who are beginning this work to talk about how we're going to benchmark to make sure students are reaching appropriate levels. So we'll be doing that, and that will be a more traditional test because we believe students will continue to take traditional tests as part of their learning. We do have our STAR assessment, which will help us to make sure students are continuing to make growth. So I think those are two very important aspects of that, and we'll keep a pretty close bead on the kinds of, through regular meetings, the kinds of evidence that students are learning. And you're looking at a group of teachers here in this room who have a really, really good understanding about what constitutes depth of knowledge, deep depth of knowledge in terms of submitting evidence. I know one teacher who's here tonight used personalized learning protocol to prepare for PSSAs. She believes it went very successfully. She would plan a course for students. She would send them out. She did mini lectures. They used technology. They would come back and she told me, you know, students are getting very frustrated because I'm telling them, you're not ready. You're not showing me the correct evidence. Go back. How would you like to go back? You did it this way the first time. Let me show you another way you could go back to get this. So there's incredible rigor in all of this. So I think, I hope that answers your question.
The other part is if you want to encourage kids to sort of set their own path, how can you encourage them to go in places where they would rather not go? Because I really believe there's a strength in trying areas where you have maybe don't feel your strength, and how would you encourage that?
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, so we can begin just with, fortunately, there are a lot of, and I know this may sound simplistic, but there are a lot of PA core standards around reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And when students have to show evidence of that, that would be challenging for any student because those are all difficult aspects, different difficult aspects. But beyond that, I think our teachers are aware of that. And when they say, we don't quite know what next year looks like, I think they're very sensitive to thinking about, okay, we just did this project, and it was really great. In what ways did it challenge our students? In what ways didn't it? What other things, like maybe now we'll go to a period of time where we're looking at setting personalized goals instead of specifically doing a project. In what ways can we push our students? I think what this does at its core, and I guess the one thing I haven't said yet is I believe, like one of the reasons I care so deeply about this is on behalf of students, but also on behalf of teachers. And I would like teachers to go home at the end of the day and feel deeply satisfied with their work. And I think sometimes when teachers are seeing 98 students sitting in rows, they go home at the end of the day and they don't feel like that because they don't get the opportunity to really know their students. And I think there's an opportunity of really getting to know a student through that kind of personalized conferencing. And I think when you know a student well, you also know how to push a student in areas that they need to be pushed in.
One other question. Sometimes you read about like competence-based evaluations, and it made me wonder if, you know, when the discussions between teacher and student, do they discuss, here are the competencies that you need to get, you know, and then you know what you need to get, and then you can demonstrate that you've gotten to those. And
an example currently in my classroom, we're doing a study on waves, and I did a project called we're doing a project called Rock Band, and basically I laid out 73 competencies, a grid ranging from depth of knowledge 1 through depth of knowledge 4, define, illustrate, label, and then describe, so on and so forth. And I'm allowing the kids to explore waves through the nature of music, and they can either build an instrument, write a song, so on and so forth. But the bottom line is that they need to demonstrate those competencies to me. The way I decided to do it was an individual conference with every kid on each competency. Now that can take 15 seconds. Can you define this for me? Nope, not right. Here's what you missed. Go back and readdress, and let's talk about it. The whole project itself is designed for these kids to demonstrate their competencies through the building of an instrument and holding the instrument and going, look, this is a sound wave, so on and so forth. So in that way, we're doing competence benchmarks. Kids were able to pre-test out of that if they showed a certain level of competency within one section.
Thanks, because that's exactly what I was wondering about. So that's great.
And
go ahead.
what Rob Miller was describing really is, sort of it's that piece of that metacognition, right? So you're really beginning with, we often in the middle of a unit get the, why do I need to learn this? Why is this important? As opposed to starting in the beginning, we need to learn this? Why is this important? And then when you do that kind of competency matrix, these skills are within a context. The student sees the interrelatedness. And how one leads to the other, right? And so that becomes a very powerful part of that metacognition, and also that framework, right, for the teacher and the student as they co-design the learning.
We spoke about the space, how it can encourage or discourage what you're trying to do. I'm wondering how important the role does a schedule affect what we're thinking about, what you're trying to incorporate.
So go ahead.
I think we have a very good block for schedule. When the team of lead teachers meet with the whole group of personalized learning teachers, we have 60-minute periods, and they are back-to-back in a lot of grades. So, and Rob Albert has addressed concerns for the teams to make sure that, like, 6th grade had some concerns, so they're addressing the schedule in the scheduling committee to make sure that they meet the needs of personalized learning groups next year.
He missed that.
You got a shout out, Mr. Elwood.
Yeah. Because I think it really does play a major role in what we're trying to do, and the flexibility of time. And the 2 60-minute blocks would give you what you need.
First, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for this really important work. I'm really excited too. I wrote a lot of notes. So I have a couple of questions and maybe a couple of comments. First, I think the statement, I think you might have made, Phil, or Ava, that we really want everyone to have access to this. Can someone talk a little bit about how you've envisioned this working with students with special education needs, with gifted education needs, sort of for all learners, for those really super motivated kids, or those kids who are a little bit more reluctant?
And please, feel free to jump in. That was in no small part of the calculus. Initially, obstacles create an opportunity for you to reflect on your thinking more largely as you bounce off the wall, right? And so one of the walls that we ran up was, creating an equity, if we did a school within a school, and this was earlier in the year in our thinking, how did we address supporting all of our learners, special education and gifted as well? And those barriers evaporate. We're out of time. No, those barriers evaporate when you have an inclusive model. So we continue our special education and gifted program in Sandy Run, right? We continue to grow. Personalized learning shouldn't be something exceptional, right? It ideally is the normal. And so then it becomes a very powerful complement to the work to provide that individualized support, and also to make the regular education teacher aware of it. It doesn't become this abstract add-on, but a real opportunity to sort of integrate and address those needs and supports and enrichment.
So are there some special educators part of this planning process at this point, or the gifted teachers as well?
Yeah, Ava, you want to talk about?
Yeah, so there are special education teachers who have come all along, actually all year, and certainly a number of our gifted teachers have been with us from the inception, and they continue to support the work in one way or another.
Great. I think the last piece, I think there's going to be an education opportunity here for parents as well. So I just envision, as all these good things are happening, that there's always that reluctance at times of, wow, that's not how it was done when I was going to school. How are they managing their time? Are they really using all this time effectively? How are they being guided and taught? So something I've floated at a meeting recently, but just kind of putting out there once more, is that there's some good research out there on student-led conferences where students and their parents are together driving what's happening at parent-teacher conferences, which are no more, not parent-teacher. So I just wanted to kind of share that, because I think this model just syncs so well with that and gives us a great opportunity for parents as well.
I love that idea.
So I have one question. It always occurs to me when we talk about things like this, every change hurts somebody. And my question is, based on research and experience of the people you've talked to, who are the students for whom this is not the right thing? And what plans or supports are in place to address that? Or are there? Maybe, I mean, maybe there aren't. It's possible, I suppose.
So I will, and anybody can jump in, but talked about almost every time to think about who the students are. And we have different kinds of students. I don't know if that team has identified a student for whom this would not be good. Because if it's personalized, then it's thinking with that student and that individual student's needs in mind. So I can't picture a student like one. So for example, you could say, well, what about the student who is a very traditional learner? Well, if that's a learning pathway for that student, that's acceptable. As the teacher and the student are working together around that, I think that's perfectly fine. And actually, when you think about it, there's often a conversation about students in the middle, and do they really get enough attention? So I think with any model, one might identify students who aren't getting as much attention as they might need. And I guess the second part of the answer is that may bear to be seen. But what I can tell you is that the level of reflection about the needs of every student is much higher than I've ever seen it be able to be.
Mr. Sirota, just to kind of give a little bit more personal insight on that, I had a student when I came back from my knee surgery, which went very well, thank you. I appreciate it. But when I came back, I jumped in and I said, hey, look, this is going to be completely different than what you're used to. And this one student went to guidance and we sat down and actually had a meeting. And she was a lot of anxiety, because she's like, Mr. Miller, please just show me on the board what I have to do. I want to take notes. I want to take a test. I do not function with you just having us do these crazy projects. And I told her, I said, look, trust me when I tell you that this is not me forcing you into a different style of learning. It's your choice on how you want to demonstrate your understanding. She chose a very mastery level, logic-based, step-by-step presentation of her material, yet she had the freedom to advance her creativity and to start stepping out of that comfort zone. And if I had just locked her in to say, you need to do this style of learning where your understanding mode, let's go big picture, top down, she would have melted down. But she didn't understand that the project gave so much leeway and freedom in how you get to the culminating goals that she chose this pathway. My real creative kids, who want to think way outside the box and then get reined back in, were way over here. Yet they were all working on the same grid of benchmarks. It's just that she chose to demo it by doing this. They chose to demo the same concepts, but in a completely different way that suited their learning needs and their way of working. And that was, that meeting was 3 months ago maybe. And now, just recently, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, she's like, I get it. I get it. I'm good because I'm not stressed because I can do what I want and still show those understandings.
I just want to say one thing, that I think a big part of this is our job as educators is to show kids something that they may not know about themselves. So that particular student, maybe that's where she thought she should be, but how would she know that maybe there'd be another path? Maybe she doesn't see what we can see. And a big part of this personalized learning that we do in English class is weekly reflections, or maybe 2-week reflections. And they write what they feel, what they think, and they see all of a sudden, oh, I didn't know that I could do that. And I think that's our job as educators. That's our job as a personalized learning teacher, as a teacher, period, to show them different routes, to lead them the way and say, maybe try something else. Maybe you'll see, oh, you can in fact do it. So I think that's a big, big part of this. And maybe through Rob's class, she began to see, oh, wait a minute, I could do this differently and I'll still be okay. And I think that's a big part of this as well. And we won't know until we get the kids and until they meet us as well.
Thanks. So I just want to, this isn't the operations committee, and of course, but I do want to talk a little bit about the way the building process plays into this, because, so, you know, that building is like my life right now. So it feels like we're a little bit ahead of, as we always are in one way or another, we're a little bit ahead of Pennsylvania School Code. I mean, it's called the Pennsylvania School Code of 1949, and it has structures around the definition of a classroom and things like that that probably are, you know, better suited to 1949 than this level of thinking. So we'll get more into those details as we get into the operations committee, but you know, and I'm thinking big now too. I've got these great ideas. We could design a building that would be, you know, exactly for this, because this is a 50-year building we're trying to design, and we'd rather design for where we think we're going. We are going to be reined in a little bit by Pennsylvania School Code in that process. So, you know, we'll do the best we can, but it's not going to be, I don't think it can be everything we could dream of in this case.
Well, that was an interesting discussion. We have another presentation that does deal with Sandy Run, but all the teachers that came out for this particular thing, you're free to go if you want. And before you go, I just wanted to say that, you know, with this week being Teacher Appreciation Week, you've demonstrated why we appreciate you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present a relatively briefer update on the Sandy Run Middle School schedule. I'm here tonight with Mr. Rob Albert, Assistant Principal of Sandy Run and Master Scheduler. Just a very brief reminder, we convened the Sandy Run Middle School Scheduling Committee in April 2016 with representation from multiple stakeholders, with teachers, administrators, parents, school board members, and together we came up with the guiding practices of mid-level education, looking at students cognitively, socially, emotionally, and physically through research by the committee. And we've tried very hard to come back to these guidelines each time. Also, I want to add, when we post this for the community, I will link the presentation we made last year around this time so folks can go back and compare if they'd like to. And I'm going to turn this over now to Mr. Albert, but I do want to make a comment. One of the things that we set out to do and are doing is that this schedule would be on a continuous review model so that we would take plenty of opportunity throughout the year to touch base with everyone, to get feedback, to do surveys, and to make adjustments as needed. And we have done exactly that. And I will let Mr. Albert talk about that a little bit.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here tonight. It's been a quick year in a lot of ways. It seems like just yesterday I was up here going through all of this. So we started off the year in the fall, obviously, and we went through frequent meetings with the staff during the school day, a lot of different times, sometimes after school at faculty meetings, but different ways to just get a feel of what's working, what's not working, where do you see positives and negatives, because going into this, there wasn't one piece of the schedule that was kept the same from last year into this year. We went into the winter and continued some of those meetings and started putting out surveys. We got results back from the parents, from the students, and from the staff. And then we reconvened our scheduling committee, and our work continued through the spring, where we went through and we looked at all of those surveys, discussed what different options might exist for us based on those surveys, and ultimately came up with our recommendations that we're looking at tonight. So our recommendations that we're making as a committee to the overall schedule is keeping the overall structure intact the way it is. By that I mean the length of the periods that we have, the number of periods that meet, and how those periods get broken down. One of the things that we added in last year was something called the X Day, which is a day that happens every 5th day. And the purpose of this was to give students the opportunity to be part of an ensemble in addition to one of their other interests in allied arts. That hasn't been received overly well. It hasn't been particularly productive in getting what we wanted out of the X Day. So one of the recommendations we're making is to remove the X Day from that. And where that became a problem was addressing the students that were able to be in an ensemble, band, chorus, or orchestra. And we're looking at putting the band, chorus, and orchestra back into the advisory period, in addition to giving it some other ways to be supported in the school day as well. To that end, we're going to recommend having an 8-day letter calendar. So last year we had a 6-year. This year we had a 4 kind of plus 1. Recommending an 8-day. For 85% of the school day, an 8-day calendar won't have any effect on what goes on. So all your core classes, for example, meet every single day. A lot of your unified arts that are going every other day will continue to go every other day. What an 8-day calendar letter day cycle allows for us is to have a little bit more flexibility in how we use those times. So when we talk about putting the ensembles back in during the advisory period, when you only have a 4-day letter cycle, for example, you're pretty limited on what those frequency options could be and how you can make that mesh and work together. So with an 8-day cycle, it allows us to put an ensemble back in there without losing some of the other things that we value at that time. One of the other recommendations, and it says 6th grade on there, which is true, but adding a homeroom back in for the grade level that starts the day in a unified arts period. And unified arts was PE/health, world language, or allied arts. And the idea was that students would report right to class, and that would allow for them to have more instructional time rather than having a stop in to hear announcements, go back to your locker, and then go off to your next class. One of the downsides has been is that the 6th graders have that class first, so they go to the annex anyway to drop off all of their stuff, and then they come back, and oftentimes it's tough with the announcements to kind of get that done. So just in 6th grade alone, looking to add in an advisory period, which we also think will be a nice part for the 6th grade students that are in the building for the first time to be able to have a touch home base, homeroom in place so that they can get their bearings maybe for that day, and then it'll be a short, brief time, hear announcements, and then they're off to their UA period rather than trying to mesh those two together. In the other 2 grades, because they start in a core period where they're in their core class, that's consistent, we still would like that model the way that it's set up without having a homeroom for them. The next piece that we looked at for recommendations was around the unified arts. And there's been a lot of conversation around this, and a lot of it's tied to the ensembles and really trying to figure out how we can get the ensembles to get the adequate amount of time to keep supporting the wonderful programs that we have in Upper Dublin in our ensembles. The other part to it was one of the pushes for the scheduling committee that we had was we wanted to have student choice be part of this. And we've made that effort in 7th grade, but the feedback that we received, there was some positive, but generally it was not something, surprisingly enough to me personally, that students even necessarily enjoyed. A lot of them wanted to be able to have the opportunity to get a little bit more time in some of the others rather than really going heavy in one. So with that in mind, in preparations of going to high school when there is choice of what you're going to have to take and students are forced to, in 8th grade, having choice still in their allied arts, keeping that the same, but moving the 7th grade from a choice model into a quarterly rotation to what it was similar before. To address that though, we're looking at trying to make it work where the ensembles will have a separate cohort in that unified art band. And what I mean by that is working out a way where if you're part of an ensemble, you don't take general music in addition to your ensemble. So if you're somebody that's part of the band takes your music time in that rotation. It would be pretty hard to explain exactly how that looks right now. not because I don't know, but because it's a little bit in-depth and takes a little bit of knowledge to get through. And in the interest of some time, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to go through that for sure. The final thing is that in 7th grade, the PE teachers had lost some time in health, and we're interested in getting some of that back. So when we're going to this 8-day cycle, one of the problems that we had before was that if you took one day out, it was going too far the other way, and we were reducing too much of the PE that we wanted to have in 7th grade. So what we're looking at is being able to put in maybe once out of a full cycle, they would go to health rather than the PE, to help beef up that health program back again as well. And those are our recommendations that we've come up with so far. I'm more than happy, along with Frau Morrison, to answer any questions that the committee has. It wasn't long ago that we were here, Frau.
Yeah.
For a while.
Anyone on the committee have comments or questions?
Since I'm new to the board, I did go back to the presentation from a while ago. And one of the things I saw on there was a pilot of cards. I didn't see that back in this, and I was curious where that is or what your thoughts are on that at this point.
Sure, the CARDS program is a fantastic opportunity that we're looking to really push forward. That was one of the pieces. We knew that there was going to be an awful lot of change going into this year, that we're going to present a lot of different challenges coming into this, and it was one of the ideas that we wanted to try and pick up in this year. And with the way the year has gone and where we are right now, we didn't get to it at this point, but that is certainly part of our plan going forward. It's one of the things that I think having an 8-day cycle and advisory will help with. So just as a little bit of a background of what CARDS would be, it's a program where students are put into a cohort, a smaller cohort, so they have an opportunity to connect with an adult. There's some discussion about what that cohort might look like. Some models show take X number of students from each grade, so you have a multi-grade cohort. Others say that it's better maybe to just keep it at a grade level so that the conversations are more age appropriate to that. But that's definitely something that we're looking to bring back to get into more of the character education side as well.
Well, I'm so glad you kept your word, and we looked at how it went the first year, because there was concern that I had, especially with being a musician, and what I heard is that there may be an effect in terms of students and participation and not having the option. And I'm just really pleased to see that we're revisiting it and making improvements. We can always make improvements no matter where we are, and I'm sure we're going to continue to look at it and just continue to improve the schedule. I think it's very creative, and I think this is going to be some great options now, and hopefully we'll see those numbers again in some of those ensembles.
And to that point, if you were to talk to the ensemble teachers at the middle school, I think they would tell you that maybe they were feeling a little bit less on the numbers of enrollment, but they've certainly enjoyed the amount of time and exposure they have. They feel like they're doing more music now than they ever have. So I encourage all of us to come on out to our upcoming concerts in the next coming weeks, and we'll get a chance to see how well they...
But there's great value in the variety, too, of some of the students who want to be in chorus and want to be in band and maybe orchestra. At that age, they need to explore that and perhaps then focus a little bit more once they get into high school.
Yep.
I think there's a reason why we're one of the top music education communities in the country, because we really, really value our music and our arts.
Yep.
I'd also just like to follow up by saying, when we say continuous review process and meeting countless hours, and I want to say week after week after week, you're looking at Mr. Albert, who has devoted himself, and I'm not exaggerating, both in FaceTime with teachers, going back to teachers, sitting with the schedule and finding unbelievably creative ways, like what he suggested with the special cohort of band, not taking, like it is really, I'd like to congratulate him for all of his hard work on this.
Also, just to add that Mr. Alblin and I, we enjoyed the sixth grade play the other day, and just to see the sixth grade putting on a show that was, I thought, so professionally done, and I think that's just a great value that we have.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment that you didn't address in this, but I just wanted to say my personal appreciation. I've been hearing a lot of foreign language in my house, and I think since the change to selecting a language and having a deeper embrace of that in 6th grade, the enthusiasm that I'm hearing and the use, I'm sure they're trying to get things by me, but I do want to say that I think that was a great enhancement to the schedule this year. So from a mom's perspective, thank you.
Another Mr. Albert idea.
Thank you very much. As the World Language Coordinator, I take a lot of pride in hearing that as well, and hopefully the language is good enough that they can slip something by you. That's our goal. That's our goal as language teachers.
I just want, because I've had questions about this as we talk about it, just can you clarify, we use the word rotation in a couple of different ways, and one of the ways you didn't address is the way we rotate classes during the week, like you don't have math the same period every day. We're still doing that.
Yeah, so that's in 7th grade. In 7th grade, we still are looking at 4 60-minute courses as we currently do, but we actually have 5 classes, so over a 5-day period, each course meets 4 times. So we're looking to keep that. There was some feedback and there were some questions about how to address that, and it certainly isn't a perfect solution, but at the end of the day, there was a lot of positive feedback about the opportunities that the teachers feel they have in 60 minutes. And with going just 1 year, there's a lot of different variables that have gone into this 1 year that we really don't want to make too many huge changes as far as instructional time in a class each day at this moment. But it's something that we're definitely going to want to keep an eye on.
Thank you, Mr. Albert.
Thank you.
We do appreciate the work you're doing.
And all you.
Okay, moving to the next part of our meeting, reports and recommendations. As usual, there's the enrollment report. The next item is Upper Dublin High School low enrollment courses.
We would like to recommend that the school board approve the cancellation of the following courses, and if you'll allow me, I'll just talk through some of the reasoning for the cancellations for this year. For advanced print graphic design and intermediate print graphic design, it is a 3-year sequence, and there is no intro to printmaking at this time, so that's why there's low enrollment for that course. We'll see an uptick when that's part of the 3-year rotation. Also, we're starting to think about possible future integration of printmaking and photography, and that's yet to be determined. And you can stop me at, would you like me to talk through it, or would you like to, you're welcome to stop me at any time if you have a question. In terms of accounting, we concurrently run Accounting 1 and Accounting 1 honors, and when students enter the course, they almost always elect to do Accounting 1 honors, and so we'll be dropping the Accounting 1 from our enrollment. Same thing for Accounting 2. We offer Accounting 2 and Accounting 2 honors. You can see aquatic activity and physical education. There's only one, and there will be a further recommendation I'll talk about. Our academic literacy 3, that is our reading support class, and we don't have any current students enrolled, which is actually a good thing. That's our 11th and 12th grade reading support. We only had 2 students enroll in African American culture, and so that is a staffing barrier to offer that just for 2 students. For the Cold War on Terror, those students are actually going to take politics of today's world as an alternative that fits better into our schedule. In terms of our advanced film production honors, it is a redesign. So Chris Horn came last year to talk about our redesign. We now have a course sequence that begins with Introduction to Television and Film, of which there are a healthy 2 courses right now. But because that was the first year of having that, we're not yet into the cycle of having a robust 2nd-year course. But we anticipate with 2 sections this coming year that we're likely to have a section next year. In terms of Advanced Theater 2 honors, we just have a enrollment of 4 students. At the high school, and just as a note of explanation for world language, Most of our students enter in year 2 of world language. However, there are new students to our high school, and there are students who are picking up a second world language. We will be offering Latin, French, and Spanish. We do not have the staffing because our German classes are too low to offer a German one.
So level 1 will be Latin, French, and Spanish.
Spanish.
Okay, we have the numbers to warrant that.
Yes, we do. Well, you'll see there. It is low, but it will grow, and we have the staffing to run it, so there's no reason not to. In fact, Chris Ianni, who's the teacher, the Latin teacher at the high school, is teaching that class as a voluntary 6th course.
You missed architecture.
Is that it? Let me see where it is. We simply don't have a large enrollment for architecture, and our staffing is very, very full for any kind of tech ed architecture classes. So there are other opportunities students have, but it's not the architecture course. There's an intro course that includes architecture, and so we had to make some crucial decisions, but with 20 enrollments of 24, 25, 26 in the other courses, that's a course that we're not going to offer next year as a recommendation to you.
Any other comments or questions on that?
And then we just would like you to be aware of potential cancellations, but at this juncture, and I met with Mr. Mitchner, the high school scheduler, this morning, we are going to be running all of those courses. Some of those will grow as Mr. Mitchner seeks to balance classes, and sometimes students, their singleton courses, students have a conflict and then they need to choose another course, so we need to have some opportunity for them to do that. Additionally, we get approximately 30 to 50 students who are new to our high school. They also need to have some choices in what to take. And then finally,
Just on that section, the music industry, is that Mr. Smith's, one of his classes?
It is.
Okay. You may not know this, but you can get back what the enrollment is this year for that class.
Okay. Yep. I will do that. And I may be able to look it up as we're moving forward. And then finally, we are making a recommendation for removing approval to remove a course, and that course is called Aquatic Activities. There have been several years in a row where we've either had 0 or 1 enrollment. That course was an alternate to our health and PE course that would involve swimming beyond the 9th grade year, and we just don't have students that really want to take it, and so we would like to end that choice.
So help clarify for me the difference between what you do for the aquatic class with the ones that we're just canceling. Do they stay in the book, but they don't run?
No, we're canceling the aquatic class for next year, but we're also removing the class forever. So it's 2 things. Won't run
There's a
next year,
difference.
and then when we go to program of studies for the 2019-20 school year.
Okay. So those first 10, whatever it is, those will appear next year depending
Correct.
on enrollment.
Except for one of those, which we're now recommending to remove from our program of studies, which is aquatic fitness.
Understood.
It's up here too.
It's up there too, yeah. Yeah, got it.
So the ones in the second group are all running, so you will not.
It is unlikely.
Do you
And so
still want the motion?
We would like you to be aware of it. So the motion actually is to be aware of the potential cancellation. We don't believe we're canceling that. If we were to cancel a class, we would bring it back to the board for approval.
So all 3 parts will be in the motion. All right.
Question.
We're good with moving that on, or do you have another?
Sarah.
Well, Tisha go first, she's on the committee.
You mentioned the sequence for the printmaking and graphic design. I see that in the low enrollment there is the intro. Is that number 1 in the sequence of 3, or is that not a different sequence?
Some of those classes run concurrently. The intro class runs concurrently with the intermediate class, so I would have to find out specifically if that's the case.
Okay, because originally it sounded like there was a set of 3, and because we don't have Okay.
It is true that there are a set of 3, but you are uncovering a question we're going to be looking at, which is thinking about redesigning, perhaps having an intro class, giving students the opportunity to taste a number of those classes, a number of those subject areas.
Ava, is there another African American history class, or is this the only one that we offer?
As specifically as an African American class, that is the only one we offer. When we redesigned our social studies curriculum, one of the things that our teachers regularly do, and I actually recently I have regular check-in conversations with our social studies coordinator, are we teaching history from multiple perspectives? And he gave me quite a number of examples from each grade level and course where we're looking at it through the perspective of different kinds of people throughout history, but we do not have a separate African American history class. We don't, our high school doesn't offer any specialized history classes. They tend to be kind of bigger than that. Yeah. Although it is a course that if students signed up for it, we have it. I mean, it's not that we don't want to offer it, it's just that we're not getting the enrollment for it.
If I have a question, so I was looking up last year's cancellations as well, and so there are some that are on repeat from the previous year. So my question is, and the examples are, for example, print design, German, et cetera, and some of these are all from last year as well. At what point do they just get removed from the course of studies so that they're not canceled per se, but they're just not even being offered anymore?
So we would always want to keep our 4 world languages as a possibility for year 1. If, for example, if we had the staffing in German to offer a German 1, we probably would, but we don't. With a full-time teacher at the high school, a full-time teacher at the middle school, and a teacher floating between 2 buildings. So that's not a course we would cancel. The printmaking, again, we're taking a look at the sequencing of that, thinking about combining it with photography, and we're in the process of that, but we don't have a recommendation around that yet. But the aquatics course has been on the low or 0 enrollment for quite a number of years, and the high school administration has finally gotten to the point to say, really, now is the time to say we really don't need to offer it anymore.
Are we good with moving this forward? Okay. All right. Can we move on to renewal of the STAR assessments?
So we have been using the STAR assessments for over a year now, and we're asking the board to once again renew the subscription. The total dollar amount is for the use of it in all of the buildings at this point.
Any comments or questions? I think it sounds like from some of our other presentations that the STAR testing has been very helpful.
It's been extremely helpful in a variety of areas, from response to intervention to gifted programming. We've been extremely happy with the results we're getting from it.
Any comments?
Just a quick question. Is that contract amount the same as last year, or is it up or down? Do you know?
I would have to check the specifics. In last year, Mrs. Morrison added the middle school and the high school. When we first did it, we were just doing the elementary, so there's some change just in terms of the total number. And it is as a license per number of students, so there's some fluctuation in terms of that as well.
Okay, we'll move that over. Oh, excuse me.
I was going to ask you about that also. So it's a number of students, and is it 1 year? Should we expect to see this annually?
Yes, you should expect to see it annually. With like STAR and then some of the other subscription items that we have on here, there is always the opportunity to get a multi-year pricing that is a lower pricing. Philip and Ava and I have had several conversations about making a multi-year commitment to anything tech, and the advantages and disadvantages of having a lower price and then 2 years from now having it not be at all what you want. So we've kind of made a collective decision to go with a 1 year renewal. Even though it is slightly more expensive up front, we don't want to ever be stuck with something that's cost a lot of money and is no longer the best thing for the district.
Okay, we'll move that forward and go on to first in math.
So this year, we had the opportunity with our math coach, Leah Howard, to really sit down with our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers and talk about what we could do to improve our math scores, specifically our PSSA proficiency in the area of mathematics. And in each grade level, one theme emerged above all of the others, and that was that our students do not have sufficient math fact fluency when they come to any of the grades. So they don't have sufficient addition, they don't have sufficient multiplication, and that we needed to do something constructive and purposeful around having them have that math fact fluency. When we were in school, most of us, it was flashcards, and you could certainly still use flashcards. It is a less expensive opportunity. But there are several programs that are available to students 24/7. They can do it without a parent having to use a flashcard with them. They're extremely engaging. And so this year we had teachers test out a number of different online math fact fluency programs. They got free 30-day pilots, 60-day pilots, 90-day pilots, depending on the program. And then a survey was sent to all of the teachers asking them which program they would most like to work with for next year. So again, we're asking for 1 year with First in Math. It is a program that we had used in previous years in the district, so it's not entirely unfamiliar to our teachers, although they have upgraded it considerably. So the primary purpose of that will be math fact fluency practice, and there'll be some kind of an agreement on how that will be pushed out to students, if it'll be asked to be like a 10 minutes a night, like 20 minutes of reading, that sort of thing. And then we'll track how well we do in terms of math fact fluency. The other thing that's nice about First in Math, 2 other things that are nice is, one, it does have all kinds of other things. There's coding, there's all kinds of like supplementary programs in there. And 2, there is the opportunity for students to compete with one another locally at the state level and at the national level. And one of the things that I have heard as the director of Gifted from a number of parents is that we don't have adequate opportunities for students to have academic competitions. And so although most of our students won't find that something that they particularly want to pursue, for some of our students, even in the pilot, it was a really big deal. And I had students write me letters and say, please keep this. I was #1 in the state of Pennsylvania. I was #5. So for that constituency of students, it's a really nice opportunity there.
Do you want to talk about Math Seeds also?
Yeah, so we looked at whether or not we wanted a fluency program to go all the way down to kindergarten. Kindergarten, we don't need kids to be automatic with their addition and subtraction, but we do have the opportunity. A year and a half ago, we got a program called Reading Eggs, which again is a 24/7 available to students 365 days a year, device agnostic, so they, with the exception of a Kindle, so they can do it on their parents' phone, their home computers, and it's really time on task. With reading. It's super engaging. They win eggs. They can decorate their apartment, all kinds of really fun things. So a lot of our teachers who were using Reading Eggs got a free invite to use Math Seeds, which is a sister program, did the 30-day trial, had the same experience. Their kids loved it. They went home. Parents were really pleased with the opportunity. Again, it's a lot of fun. It's super engaging. And so it's early numeracy skills. There certainly is some fact fluency, but it's a more age-appropriate kind of a program. So again, 1 year. What's nice about it too is it's a single login with Reading Eggs through their Google login. So really easy for kids to access and parents to use as well.
Do we still have any relationship with Zern, or is that gone by the wayside?
Yes, so we still have a relationship with Zern. So Zern is more specific supports around what we do in the Eureka curriculum, and so teachers use Zern for a flipped classroom approach. They use it for extra practice. And it's also a tool that we use pretty frequently for students who are ready to be enriched further or to accelerate by giving them access to portions of the program that are beyond where they are in Eureka. So it's still a companion to Eureka.
So these are meeting different needs.
Yes, very different needs, yep.
All right. Any comments or questions?
Yes, you said Leah Howard is a math coach?
Yes.
Okay, I'm new to the board here. What does a math coach do? Does this person teach any students? Is it grades kindergarten through 12th grade?
So Leah was formerly a fourth grade teacher at Fort Washington Elementary School. And when the district adopted the Eureka Math curriculum, Leah was brought over to become a math coach. And she actually worked a portion of her day for that company that produces Eureka Math. So she became quite the expert on it and really helped the district move through the launch of that. Now she continues to support new teachers in induction. She supports teachers when they have students who need advanced work or remedial work around that. She provides our professional development, our data analysis. So she works at the elementary level primarily, although right now she's working a lot with 6th grade, 5th grade articulation and that transition from 5th to 6th grade, and as part of the math review committee. So we have Kathy Smythe, who does similar work in the area of reading and also serves as an assistant principal, and Leah works in the curriculum office focusing on primarily elementary mathematics. She no longer teaches students directly as part of a classroom, although she continues to be a teacher on special assignment in the contract.
So she's basically administrator?
She's not an administrator. She's in the teacher's contract as a teacher on special assignment, but she functions working out of the curriculum office, where Mrs. Smythe is an administrator.
Is this a special assignment temporarily, or is it
So
this
it's-
is ongoing year after year?
So it's a memorandum of understanding with the bargaining unit that allows her to continue in that role. Her position is reserved as a long-term substitute at the elementary level. So if at some time it would be the desire of the school board and the superintendent to have her no longer serve in that role, there would be a space available for her in the classroom.
I just want to make a comment on math seeds. My daughter, who's in kindergarten, is obsessed with it.
Oh, good.
So
That's awesome.
It has been on my phone. She's getting into reading eggs and is doing math, and she has decided that is her absolute favorite subject. So I'm highly supportive of math seeds.
Thank you very much. That's great to hear.
Okay, do you have another?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
So Phil, this would be a question for you. In light of the technology refresh and some of this tech is going down to the younger grades, could you maybe highlight in terms of where that's at in terms of access for some of the younger grades in terms of the tech?
Yeah, so this is about taking that piece of butter and getting it to go across the whole baguette, right? So it is a challenge, and it's a good problem to have. We have a lot of teachers in elementary who really can do powerful things with the tech and want more. We'll have a domino. Right now, when we do the refresh, while a lot of our students are going to take their device with them as a personal device, or they're going to trade them in towards credit for their tech fee, all of the faculty devices are coming back into the fold. And so those are going to go down to the elementary. But following the refresh cycle, our elementary was 1 year behind the original 512. So we had 512. So a year from now, we're going to be refreshing devices at the elementary, really wanting to keep these devices as our backups and our loaners, because the newer devices will have touch screens, stylus, Android apps, and especially for those younger fingers, right? But really in almost every context. It's going to be very powerful to do things organically with a touch screen. And the apps that our kids are using are really designed for that. So that will be the new wave. So we have a stopgap next year with devices to flush out, and the plan is really to put those in grades 3 and 4 at first, because that's where this device with a keyboard already will have the greatest impact. And then the following year, we're going to start impacting the lower grades. It's all subject to change. The demand could be so great, right? The workflow and the need cases, and Kim and I could be having a conversation in a few months where I'm coming back here and saying, with maybe an army of teachers, like we could do this now. And that's a great problem to have. But at the same time, there's a ton in technology that's really invisible to teaching and learning. And we're making those investments right now. And even those investments are being made at a pace that is a little glacial, right? But we're sort of responsibly trying to handle those. So So it's a complicated piece.
Yeah, not enough butter.
Not enough butter. No, I want big sticks of butter, yeah.
So we'll move that forward, both of those. Do you want to discuss all of the ELA-related motions?
I would. I don't know if I have a butter analogy, but I'll think of one while I'm going through. So we last year rolled out foundations in grades K and 1. We very intentionally held off on second grade. Second grade is much more complicated in terms of foundations, and so in order for students to be successful, they really need to have had at least first grade. So we held off. We do want to finish up that implementation with the purchase of second grade foundations to begin next year. Our teachers did receive training already in the spring, so everybody is ready to go. I will say the results on the K-1 have been excellent. Our kids are foundation geniuses, so we're super excited about that. One of the things that helped make foundations so successful this year is, again, Kathy Smythe, our reading coordinator, participated with the group of teachers at Fort Washington Elementary in the Wilson Foundation Facilitator Training. So she became a facilitator for K and 1. That involved the facilitator and Kathy going into classrooms and doing lessons, and Kathy videotaping her doing lessons. She's going to do the same thing next year, which is the second Wilson language item there. For the second grade, she'll do it this time with the Jarretttown team of teachers, and again, that will provide her with great expertise in terms of being able to make sure that this launch is done extremely well, and that all teachers, as we get new teachers over time, are teaching foundations to the best of their abilities. Any questions about foundations before I move on? Ms. Rancic.
So how many Wilson certified foundations folks do we have in the district who are instructing students?
So Wilson Language has a certification for Wilson that we use as an intervention with some special education students.
For the older kids?
Right, yes, right. That's primarily done in grades 4 and 5. And so we have, I believe, 2 reading specialists and 1 elementary teacher who are Wilson certified currently, and I'm not sure of the number of staff at the secondary level. You do not require a Wilson certification to implement foundations. Foundations is a preventative, not an intervention program, so there is no certification required. We just like to provide our teachers with ample training. The facilitator training is not a Wilson certification. However, it is in the classic sense of delivering the intervention, it is something that Wilson recognizes in terms of getting teachers professional development ongoing in the use of foundations.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome. Move on. So I have presented these items at numerous meetings in different times, so I'm not sure how deeply you want me to go into them, but I'll just say something briefly. So the next item H is the Heinemann, Fountas, and Pinnell benchmark assessment kits. So in the district previously, we had used primarily RAS as our leveling system from reading A to Z. Some of our reading specialists were using the earlier editions of the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment. Not all of them had ever received any training in using that. The reason that getting a leveling system is really important is because it allows teachers to accurately pinpoint where a student needs to be instructed in their reading progression. And so this past year, as part of RTI, all of our students who were identified as needing Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions were given a Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment by a reading specialist, which was great, and we had excellent information on them. We did not have that kind of information for the majority of our non-Tier 2 and Tier 3 students, so our 80% who are in Tier 1. So one of my goals as a director of elementary is to get us to a place where we're all speaking the same language around reading. And so using the Fountas and Pinnell assessment, which is a superior tool to RAS, is one of those goals. So we had a training in the spring that we were able to get some of our teachers to. We have another training coming up on June 18th and 19th for those Act 80 days that we added that will allow more teachers to learn how to use the assessment kits. And then this is asking for 25 kits, which will be approximately 1 per grade level per building, plus upgrading the reading specialists who have older editions of the kits. I'm sorry.
50 is what you have in the.
I apologize, 25 K-2 kits and 25 3-5 kits. Thank you for catching that. Ultimately, it would be ideal for each teacher to have their own kit. But again, we're starting off small and growing this. So this is something that you will see me come back in the future and ask for additional kits. I think, for this year, 1 per grade level will be sufficient, but over time, we'll ask for additional kits in future years. All right. Okay. The next one is Faunus and Pinnell Independent Reading Classroom Libraries. Again, I had spoken to this in a previous presentation to the board. One of the things that I think all districts do, at least most districts that I'm aware of, is that they don't provide teachers with the books for their classroom libraries. The majority of teachers use Scholastic points, they go to library sales, they use their own money, they dig through their own closets to get books. And so you have varying degrees of quality based on how veteran a teacher is, whether or not they inherited the previous teacher's selection of books. And so what we're asking for in this purchase is to give everybody at least a baseline set of really high quality independent reading books. It's a single copy of each title in their classroom so that students can have a book box, they can do independent reading, and we as a district have provided them with a baseline of quality books, not just relying on whatever they're able to gather on their own as teachers. And then the final piece is the purchase of the books for the guided reading book rooms. We have talked extensively here about guided reading becoming an integral part of what we do in our ELA instruction. We did purchase and own all of the guided reading books that are available through ReadyGen at this point, but that number is insufficient to really have a developed guided reading program. And so what this is requesting is the support of a book room in each of the 4 elementary schools. The titles would be for K-3 right now. Again, and I want to say that about the independent reading one in the previous in I, that's for K-3 as well. Faunus and Pinnell don't have those books out for 4 and 5 either as the guided reading or the independent reading at this time. As we use those books this year, if the teachers find them extremely useful and the 4th and 5th grade teachers want to pursue that, I may come back next year with a 4 and 5 request. But at this time, it's limited to a K-3 request. So this would be a centrally housed book room where teachers could select books precisely to the level that their students needed and instruct them in guided reading. I think that's everything.
Yeah, you did a pretty detailed presentation on guided reading, so I don't know if everyone here was at that presentation, but are there any other comments or questions about any of these?
Yeah, I continue to struggle with the expense of all these different books. I'm envisioning books sitting, gathering dust in the near future, but you maintain that that's not going to be the case, so I'm going to hold you to that. But my next question is...
Don't bring a ruler and measure the dust.
We do this now for K-3. What are the numbers going to look like for 4 to 5? Because I feel that request coming pretty soon, and I would expect that those numbers probably go up pretty significantly.
Yeah, one of... well, I'd like to say a couple things to make you feel better. One is I don't anticipate any dust on these books. We will, I'm sure, be using them quite often. 2, just as a matter of interest, and this is maybe something that we could discuss further at the Finance Committee, one of the things that we were able to do this year, and I'm hopeful that we would be able to do again next year, is I met with Jen Baldessano, and we were able to go through the monies allocated to the district through Title II, Title IV, and the Ready to Learn grant. And in fact, if you review the curriculum budget, we suddenly have about $200,000 in our budget that we didn't have in previous reviews because we were able to put those allocations into those categories. And so a large portion of the expense that we have incurred for all of these ELA programs and initiatives, as well as the professional development, we are able to fund through those title dollars and through Ready to Learn rather than the general fund curriculum budget. So I do anticipate that we would be able to do that again next year as well. So it is an offset of what the district's regular general fund costs would be associated with this. So I think that we are frankly behind as a district in this area. I think most districts of our caliber have long established book rooms of this type, and so I recognize that we have asked for a considerable sum of money over the past couple of years in the area of ELA, and we'll do so again next year. You're absolutely correct. I most likely will ask you for the same thing for 4 and 5. That will be done then. We'll have the full complement. But I do think that we're playing catch up, and there's a cost to playing catch up at this point.
I too glared at the price, but again, we're going to trust in regards to it. I guess I'm going to borrow a personal narrative from our family. We typically, when we do budgeting, we say, is it a want or a need? And I guess if you could speak to the necessity of the purchase of these 2 libraries. The second thing, and I know we've talked about it before in terms of facility, but is, in addition to the cost here, is there any other associated costs in terms of building out bookshelves, spaces, et cetera, and things like that, that would also be associated with this motion?
So I would say that of the 2 requests, which are I and J, the independent reading libraries and the guided reading libraries, if you said to me you had to forego one of them, I would forego the independent reading libraries. I would do so reluctantly because I know that children have different experiences depending on what classroom they're in terms of what books are readily available to them. That to me is not as critical as the guided reading book rooms. I think that it's critical. I think independent reading is something that's really important. Our teachers, for the most part, do a good job of getting those by themselves. I personally don't feel like teachers should have to get books by themselves. So, I think that's a topic that the board could certainly discuss. The guided reading book rooms, I think, are absolutely imperative to move forward with guided reading. We have to have a number of high-quality texts that are leveled to meet our student needs in order to progress them along the reading continuum. You are also correct that there will be an expense for bookshelves. Brenda and I have had, and the principals have had extensive conversations about that. The principals have each kind of found a designated area in their building. We will seek to buy the most inexpensive yet sturdy and safe bookshelves that we can buy. There are no other expenses that I'm aware of at this time. Although I will say one thing that we may look at over the summer. Traditionally, a book room like this, there's little pocket cards and the teachers sign out the books because they're expensive and you want them to come back. There are some opportunities now to get labels and have phone apps and those kinds of things to scan them back in. It's not terribly expensive, but it is something that we may want to get a more sophisticated approach to checking books in and out. Until they all arrive here and we really talk that through with the teachers, I'm not prepared to say what that might look like, but it wouldn't be a large sum.
Related to that and thinking of the process of tracking the books, and are the libraries or librarians involved in this at all?
No.
Okay, and I guess should they be, would be my follow-up to that. And maybe the answer is
no.
no.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I don't think so. I mean, typically in a school, teachers are able to self-manage this very effectively. It's shared resources and materials. We'll certainly, Kathy Smythe and I will work with the reading specialists to, do the initial inventory and those sorts of things. But it is kind of out of the realm of, because these are not books that students are checking out. It really is a teacher resource that's a shared resource that's managed by professionals, and typically it's not an issue.
Okay, and the other question, just for clarity, somebody else's mic on? When you and Ava presented the curriculum budget, I think it was in December, although I might be off by a month. This was all in there, right?
Yes, it was all in there. Is it all in there, Joan? Yeah, okay.
There are details that are slightly different, a few dollars here or there, but yes, they're all there.
Thank you for confirming.
Yes.
I think this is the fourth presentation of this material this year.
So unless there is a great desire among the committee to consider not approving one of these, I think we should move them all forward. We're good? Okay. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. The British Exchange.
As I was sitting here, I was trying to remember and make a comment regarding when the British Exchange happened. So Dr. Levinowitz, you might be able to help me. I believe it was started by Steve Heck, who did a Fulbright teacher exchange in 1972, 1973. I was in third grade. But I'm not 100% sure. But all that to say, we are in our umpteenth year of having an exchange with Great Britain, and for many years it's been with Sir John Law's school. Our students just returned and had a wonderful experience, and this is the recommendation to provide support for that exchange to occur again in the 2018-19 school year.
I think it's a great program, and we should just move that on. And we're getting close to 8, so I'm going to move really quickly. Is there anything in the conferences that's of note, or anyone who has a question about them?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's not much, but do we need to have a teacher attend the 46th Special Ed Lowell Conference? Since I get the psychologist, but do we need to just have a regular elementary school teacher attend that conference?
Which conference?
It's just the second one down.
Joe Walsh is an emotional support teacher. He is also getting his supervisory of special education certification, and so in support of his professional development and growth, I would support that he attend that.
Okay, great. Okay, and I'm looking at this other one that says PAPBS form. Do we need to have 15 staff members attend that forum? I mean, that's a $9,000 item. Do we need to have 15 people attend that?
Right, and I can defer to the principals in the room that are attending with their staffs. To Peter Austin, are you here? Peter was our pioneer in this. He took a whole group, how many summers ago? One summer ago, and has launched a very successful school-wide positive behavior support system, which others are now following.
Right. So originally it wouldn't have been as many. Last year we went as the pilot for the district, and this year we were actually selected as a presenting group. So we're presenting, that's why we're taking a group from Fitzwater. So you're right, we could have saved you about 5 there, but I apologize, we did an okay job, and they want us to come back and talk about it.
Great, congratulations, that's good. Thank you. And my last one is, again, down here at near the bottom, you have a Future Business Leaders of America Leadership Conference. I see the hotel, the lodging is $1,075. I see it's a shared room, but who's the other person's going?
So Future Business Leaders of America requires a certain number of chaperones, so the 2 chaperones cover that. I could get the information about who's going. It's a teacher from Upper Dublin High School. Future Business, FBLA is one of our leading premier clubs at the high school. They regularly go to states and nationals. This is a national level competition. They regularly come back with all sorts of awards and prizes. Students primarily pay for their own transportation. You'll see that in a motion probably the next time we meet as an education committee. That is the cost of the teacher. And I would like to add that the dates that teacher is going for 7 days, that both of those teachers will receive no pay, will be doing the entire week fully voluntarily, and the only remuneration they will have is the cost of transportation and lodging for that time. And so simply 2 teachers are necessary, and that is the cost it is to take students to that national conference.
Great, thank you.
They do great work, our FBLA. I think we have over 100 students participate. They present at FWBA, that's where I was going. And just the commitment and the love that.
And Mr. Opsky, since you're asking, I also would like to inform the board that we'll be adding a few more items for the legislative meeting next week. When our launch team teachers presented, they indicated we'd be visiting a school district, and there will be some cost associated with that you'll see, and I'd be happy to explain it to you when it appears.
Okay, we'll move that forward. I think that's it for right now. We would like to open it up for community input. I know we have at least one community member who's been waiting very patiently.
Hi, Jill Florin from Drescher. I've had 2 kids go through the district. My first is actually graduating from college this year, and the second one is finishing her freshman year. I have been on a parent page on Facebook and for my daughter, and one thing that always comes up as a stress is around registration time. And the reason it comes up is because people are afraid of what classes they're not going to get into, etc. One of the things that has come up on that page is college credits that kids come in from high school with. Now, we all know college is really expensive. We all want our kids to graduate on time. With colleges being in the business of money like everything else, they do a lot of over-enrollment. Unfortunately, with that comes the fact that they do not support the classes enough with extra staffing. So kids get closed out of classes. One of the things that I see is kids coming in with multiple credits, like 24, 48, 68 credits from high school. And that got me thinking. I know we offer a ton of AP courses, but not every kid is an AP student. What happens to those kids that really want to come in and have an advantage of having college credits to either finish college early, which will help them to graduate early and save parents a lot of money, or to be able to actually get ahead in registration because it goes by credits with when you register for classes. So one of the things that came up was there are all different forms of credits you can get, AP, IB, dual enrollment, and there's even a school that's in New York that has a dual program where you graduate actually with a high school diploma and an associate's degree. The second 2 years of the school actually is dedicated to courses that are college level. Now that's an extreme, but it's interesting. I think we are a superior district. I would like to have kids to be able to have credits coming in with more than just the kids that take the AP classes, because let's face it, not every kid is an AP student. My son was, my daughter was not. My daughter took advantage of some dual enrollment. We don't have a lot of dual enrollment in our school. I think more kids may actually get more motivated to do better if they know they have chances, like the AP kids, to take classes where they get college credit. So I was wondering if our school district could explore that option a little bit more, because I think we are behind the 8 ball in that. As I said, 24 credits is the norm that I'm seeing. And that's not in our school. My kids came out with 9, 12, 15 at the max. I think if you're taking a ton of AP classes, you may be able to get 15, 16 credits, but not 28 credits, not 30-some credits. And these schools are offering a lot more than AP. Thank you.
Mrs. Morrison, you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Mrs. Florin. That's a very timely comment, and I just want to begin on a personal note. My oldest daughter is in her first year of teaching for Philadelphia Public School, and she teaches at a school that's doing exactly what you're describing. Students are going for an associate's degree. It's called Parkway Center City. It used to be called Parkway Center City High School. It's now called Parkway Center City Middle College, where this year's 9th graders are set to graduate with an associate's degree. So I think that's a fabulous idea, and we have certainly been thinking about increasing our dual enrollment. We do have a dual enrollment with Westchester University, with Gwynedd Mercy University, as well as Montgomery County Community College currently. And those dual enrollment courses are taught on campus, and you've already referenced AP classes. So I concur with you that that's an opportunity. We recently met with the community college to explore possibilities around dual enrollment, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay. Any final comments before we adjourn? Do we have to announce? Yep. Okay. We're going into executive session for personnel and other legal matters. Okay. All right. Thank you all. The next meeting will be Tuesday. Remember Tuesday, May 29th, so after Memorial Day.